Thomas and Joesph Gambino, reputed members of what was once the country's most powerful mob family, pleaded guilty in New York today to extortion involving a crime tax on clothing made in the city's garment district. More on this tonight from NBC's John Miller.
Tommy Gambino looks like anything but a gangster. He's slight, quiet, and humble. The fact that his name is Gambino, that his father was Don Carlo Gambino, the boss of the nation's largest crime family, is not something he capitalizes on in public. In fact, he'd rather not discuss it at all.
Keep it on the level that it is.
But when it came to the garment business and his string of trucking companies, undercover cops who set up a phony dress and trucking company learned that people who worked for Gambino didn't take kindly to people not using their trucks.
Maybe my guys won't do it, but somebody will. Yeah. You know, the truckers will take his parts. And he's spending the next 6 months in hospitals. Yeah. Break the legs.
New York prosecutors charged that behind the scenes, Gambino traded heavily on his name and his mob connections. Today, in the middle of his extortion trial, he pled guilty to taking over the trucking business in New York's garment center. Gambino is seen as the mob's point man in the multi-billion-dollar apparel industry. From the works of great designers to the products of small sweatshops, nothing moved unless a mob-controlled truck carried it. And because manufacturers and would-be competitors were afraid, the mob had a monopoly. Mob-controlled trucking companies charged whatever they wanted. In the end, the consumer picked up the tab.
And we lifted the mob tax in the nation. It'll have a very salutary effect on price of garments and manufacturing across this country.
Tommy Gambino has run his trucking companies for decades. Gambino was not charged with breaking anyone's legs to effect his takeover. Instead, his reputation seemed to be enough. Prosecutors hope the deal struck today will end a generation of mob control over the garment industry. But neither of the Gambino brothers will have to do any jail time. Instead, they'll have to pay $12 million in fines, and they have 1 year to sell their companies to independents and get out of the business. John Miller, NBC News, New York.
Thomas Gambino is happy with the sentence he got today, 5 years in prison. He could have gotten 40, and he's out on bail while his lawyers take another crack at his defense. Last May, he was found guilty of loan sharking and running his family's gambling racket in Connecticut. He didn't have much to say outside the courthouse.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I thank my lawyers for a great job they did. Thank you.
One of his lawyers is Gerald Shargell. He was kicked off John Gotti's case because a judge ruled he was intimately involved in mob business.